بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى أهله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, inshallah we are going to resume our study of Hadith number 9. Now, those of you who are joining us for the first time, then you should know that we are actually studying a very famous book of Imam Al-Bukhari, known as Al-Adab Al-Mufrad. And the title of the book can be translated as individualized manners. Like the manners every single Muslim should know. And Imam Bukhari was like super passionate about this because he kind of wanted to make sure that Muslims get their akhlaq game up and make sure that their adabs are like straight. Because it seems like he foresee that there will be a time when adab will start leaving this ummah. Or you'll have a situation in the future where there will be Muslims who are praying 5 times a day, but they're 5 times as obnoxious than the person who doesn't pray. How does that happen? So he put together this book to make sure that we become the best versions of ourselves. Last time we started the Hadith 9, where Urwa ibn Zubayr, the famous student of Aisha radiallahu anha, the nephew of Aisha, who's the son of Az-Zubayr ibn Awwam, he started giving us a tafsir of a famous ayah of the Quran, and I started translating the ayah for you. And last time what I shared with you was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when it comes to dealing with our parents, Allah says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ. That Allah has given the final word on the matter. Like Allah's final command on the matter when it comes to your parents and when it comes to Him, first command, that you worship none but Him. That you dare not lower your head to anyone other than Allah. And then the second command immediately after was that you be amazing to your parents. That you go the extra mile for your parents. Then, Ya Allah, what does this going the extra mile look like? Allah says, إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِنْدَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا. If one or both of your parents reach old age, the age of retirement, the age of senility, where their mental acuity is no longer the same, what should be your behavior and attitude on the ground? Allah says, فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفْ. Don't you dare even say uff to them. In other words, don't let the slightest hint of frustration be given off when it comes to you dealing with your parents. Why not, O Allah? Because right now your parents are dependent. Right now they're not as mentally sharp as they used to be. Well, there was a time where you were dependent upon your parents and you weren't as mentally sharp. What were your parents doing? On average, waking up 3 times in the middle of the night for you. On average, changing your diapers 8 times in a day for you. We're living through it right now, so I can tell you it's so much sacrifice on a daily basis that kind of adds up. And your parents, they did all of this not because they owed you a favor, not because they're trying to reciprocate some act of kindness you had done for them, not because they are living up to something you had done for them. No, they did all of this. They provided for you, not getting a single penny in return, genuinely because they loved you, because they cared for you, not because they were paying off some debt that they owed to you. And now that they're dependent, and now that they're no longer as mentally sharp, now in this situation, shouldn't you repay the kindness? So Allah says, don't even say uff to them. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say, وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. And don't brush off your parents. Don't outright dismiss what they have to say. So we were asked in the first command, don't be verbally abusive. In the second command we were told, don't be intellectually abusive. And then after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us 2 things to not do, now He tells us 2 things to do. He says, وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. And when you address your parents, make sure you address them in a dignified manner, where they feel valued, where they don't feel being put down, where they don't feel like you don't even respect what they have to say. Make sure when you talk to them, they feel like their opinion matters to you. They feel acknowledged. They feel respected. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now we're getting to the new stuff. The second thing Allah wants us to do when it comes to our parents, and this one's a tough one. This is a pinch on the ego. Allah says, وَخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمِ. Literal translation is, and then I'll unpack it for you. Literal translation is, Allah says, when it comes to you dealing with your parents, lower your wings of humility to your parents. Now, what in the world does that mean? Our scholars, here they give two translations, two ways of understanding this. They say the first way you can understand this is that if you ever look at a bird that is trying to fly high, that's trying to go up and higher, the bird will usually spread out its wings. But when the bird is trying to go lower, it's trying to come down to the ground, trying to be down to earth, it constricts and closes its wings. In other words, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us? Don't play one up with your parents. Don't try to make your parents look stupid. You know, a lot of times kids, especially teenagers, what will happen? They'll see that their parents are not good with technology and how the parents are still using the touch screens as a touch tone phone. And they'll immediately get sarcastic and they'll start rubbing it in. Man, these boomer parents of yours, called the boomerangs, they don't know. The culture is changing so fast for them. Wallahi, I feel bad for the parents, man. It's tough for them as they're grinding out 8 to 5, 8 to 9 every day, putting food on the table. They ain't got time to keep up with the latest meme and the fad and the trend and the tweet and the latest social media platforms. And that's why a lot of the boomers still don't know what TikTok is. It's not a mint candy. It's like a social media platform. I feel bad, man. It's tough. And a lot of times these kids, they're like, I can't talk to my parents. I can't relate to them. They don't understand my hip lingo. Your kid will come home and be like, the weekend just dropped. Now, he's not talking about the fact that the Friday's here. He's talking about a rapper who's called The Weeknd, who just released his new album. A poor parent, what idea is he gonna have? Or is she gonna have? And then the kids, they're like, man, see, they don't understand me. Well, how are your parents are gonna be in the kid culture, man? Have a little patience, have a little empathy, because a time will come where your kids will feel the exact same way about you, that you're kind of out of touch, you're kind of irrelevant, you're kind of old school. It happens. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us that mercy. Second way, so the first translation was, don't try to go one up with your parents. Don't rub in their face their ignorance and how out of touch and how old school they are. Don't try to fly high. The second translation the scholars give is that when Allah says, lower your wings of humility, they say when a mother bird is trying to embrace the chick, that's when the mother bird will close the wings. Usually when they're trying to embrace that little one, that's when the wings of the birds close. In other words, as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, when it comes to your parents, every now and then, embrace them. Give them a hug. Kiss them on the forehead. It's okay to have a physical relationship with your parents. I don't know how the Arabs families roll, but in our Desi families, man, teenagers, a teenage child is so awkward around his dad. Seeing a Desi dad and a Desi teenager hugging each other is visually uncomfortable. It's kind of like if you've ever seen the winning team's coach hugging the losing team's coach. You know how that awkward dynamic is? That's how you feel like when you see them hugging each other. There's no physical relationship. There's no expression of emotions. Yet our Prophet ﷺ, hadith comes that when Fatima would walk into the room, he would kiss her on the forehead. He would hold her by the hand. They weren't awkward like that. It was chill. Our Prophet ﷺ, hadith comes in Tirmidhi, that Zayd ibn Haritha, his adopted son, once came back from a long journey. And Aisha radiallahu anha says the Prophet ﷺ was sitting inside the house and he was shirtless. He didn't have a shirt on. And the Prophet ﷺ hears a knock on the door and he recognizes that it's Zayd ibn Haritha. Aisha says the Prophet ﷺ leapt, flung at the door, opened the door, shirtless, hugged Zayd ibn Haritha. She says, I have never seen him this publicly exposed before. Just the love, just the attention, just the physical relationship. So that's another meaning that is being conveyed. Here now, to kind of wrap up this hadith, Urwa ibn Zubair gives us third translation of lowering your wings of humility. He says, La tamtani' min shay'in ahabba. That when Allah says lower your wings of humility, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually saying, that don't deprive your parents of something they love. Let me say that one more time. Don't deprive your parents of something that they love. So if your parents love you come home a little early, don't deprive them of that. If your parents love that you call them every day or every other day, don't deprive them of that. If your parents love that you pray on time without them having to remind you 30 times, don't deprive them of that. That if they love something, if something means a lot to them, give it to them. My dad is kind of like that when it comes to like walking inside the house. My dad is super like paranoid if you're making a little bit of noise, thumping noise when you're walking in the house. He's like, the neighbors underneath, they're going to get disturbed. Even when you're praying and your knees hit the ground, you're supposed to be very gentle. The moment you make any noise, my dad gets disturbed and agitated. So whenever I go to LA to visit him, I have to be very careful that I'm literally walking on my toes, because it means a lot to me. Don't deprive them of something they love. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us incredible and amazing, and to do ihsan with our parents. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.